Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts.
Much like the George.
And Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
We continue our coverage of The Heroes, Joe's second standalone and the next First Law entry, and we cover the currents of history, terms, and family. Family. So, let's get started. As usual, folks, you know we must thank you, the audience, for your continued devotion and support. We noticed a sharp uptick in downloads recently, the last week or so, and we want to thank you for either spreading the word, seeing the light again, or forcing your loved ones to listen to us at gunpoint. Whatever your heart leads you to, wherever, yeah. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, and yeah, please go, don't forget to follow us.
Please note the Circle of the World does not support murder or suicide of any kind.
We don't support murder. We don't support kidnapping.
Unless the
We don't
pedophiles.
support hostage taking. What?
And we don't worry about saying any of these words because we've already been demonetized by everybody. We don't even get offered ads anymore.
We ruined it.
But I think I know why. No, I'm missing.
And you know what? Anybody covering this series has no hope of getting monetized at all.
Ouch.
Damn! Don't say that. Don't say that. But yeah. So just go ahead and follow us on our social medias and our YouTubes. We see like at least a couple people follow like every other day. So it's like, oh, look at that. It's nice. But yeah, we appreciate it, and we appreciate your continued not fandom, more like companionship. We're all just here, aren't we?
Yeah, come and join the Discord and get a bit closer and have a chat with us. It'd be nice.
That's right. Yeah,
there's definitely not a bunch of weirdos in there.
The Discord is growing.
I'm looking at you. You know you're talking.
The Discord is growing. So yes, please, reach out to us to join and have some more fun first law based discussions and off topic discussions. We covers the gamut, let's just say. But let's move on to our first segment, which is our community interaction segment. It'll be pretty brief, right? Just a call to action for you folks that haven't done the meming every chapter soiree over there on House of the Meme Maker. Please make sure you go do that. All right, it's important because that's where we get our memes from. So please do that.
We'd have no content if you stopped posting.
You would just
that by now.
The well would run dry.
Do it for the imaginary points, internet points, and for our secret approval. You have it.
Yeah. So without further ado, we'll just go ahead and jump right into our first chapter read through, which is The Currents of History. And this one is entirely from the perspective of our girl, our homies, right? Homies. Finry Dan Brock. I was trying to find the feminine.
Oh, heroine.
No,
it's not Portuguese, Jeffrey.
Homie. I didn't say hero. I didn't say heroine. I was talking homie. I guess homie's gender neutral, so fuck it.
Homes?
Is it?
Well, it is now. I decree it such. So she is out there with the we'll just call them the medical tents, with the the wounded of the Union, and she is let's just say, how do we say this, boys? Out of sorts, I think we could say.
Yeah, she kind of has this romantic vision of what the sick tents will look like, and all of these brave men, like biting the upper lip and being brave and all that, and it's just a bunch of cut up, screaming meat, basically.
Yeah, and she's kind of just dumbfounded. She just stands there staring, and the surgeon there is like, "Hey, you know how to change a dressing?" She's like, "What?
No, not really."
And so she does like go along, and she does what she can, right? She tries to put on bandages, tries to, I don't know, help the men feel
comfort them.
A little better.
You know, if you're chopped to pieces and sitting in a cot surrounded by 700 other fucking people and probably gonna die. You know, seeing somebody nice that will talk to you nicely is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And she's kind of like she's again in a state of disbelief, but she's doing the best she can, but she's kind of like not present really in a way. And so as she's going to these different beds, she's go to this one person who is like missing his left arm above the elbow, and the left side of his face is covered in bandages. And then she stops because she hears her name, and she looks at this guy, and she realized that it's Colonel Brent. Yikes.
Awkward.
Our old friend Colonel Brent.
Yeah, and she didn't know. She was saying she said like I didn't know, as in she didn't realize it was him, and he just says because of yesterday, which is obviously the day everything went boom boom boom, and then she she doesn't know what to ask him. She goes, you do you need what do you want, and then he doesn't care. Well, the first thing he does is he asks her if she's heard anything about Elise, that she was with her as where they were held. And
I love the fact that despite the fact that he's just been blown up by a bomb, he's like, "How's
My
my wife
wife,
doing?"
my
Yeah,
wife.
it's so
Mhm.
Terrible.
sad.
Yeah, Colonel Brent's a real one. He says, and so Finnery tells him that she doesn't know what happened, that she was hooded, and then they took her away and sent her back. And she goes, she doesn't know where she'll be now.
And
And
she delivers this awful, and she knows it's a lie as well. She's like, she told you that she loved you and not to worry.
yeah,
And Stephen Pacey's performance is so fantastic because you can tell straight up that it's just a lie.
Mhm.
And Bryn just goes, yeah, whatever, basically.
no, well,
Well,
yeah,
he says not to worry, but
well, that's because
you can tell
he's repeating what Finnery told him
exactly.
he
But
told
it's said in a kind of semi-sarcastic way,
right,
yeah,
right,
not to
right.
worry.
No, yeah, and then he says like, if only I could just know.
Yeah, it's
And
like he doesn't really. I do get the vibe, but he doesn't really believe her. He's just kind of like, he just doesn't really care about what she said. He's not willing. He's not given up yet. So in his mind, he's like, well, I'm still trying to find her. I'm not going to hear her last words. Like, not to worry. Like he's distracted by that. Like he's got to find her. Which
mhm,
makes it more tragic.
yeah, it does. It really does. And Finnery doesn't know how to obviously like kind of navigate this kind of situation. She apologizes. She says she's so sorry that she tried. She tried everything she could, but it just she doesn't want to finish that sentence. So she just says she has to like go get some more bandages. She just has to get away from this kind of situation. And he asks her, "Will you come back?" And she's like, "Yes." And she doesn't even know if she's still lying. But and then she she gets out of the tent.
And I
And
really like that as well. That's I've experienced that at some point as well when you're in so much distress that you'll say anything to kind of
Yeah.
get out of the situation. And I think that
Mhm,
is just such a little moment that is so well
mhm,
illustrated here.
Yeah.
mhm. Yeah. And she kind of goes to like where the place she knows, like she'll be like it's familiar to her. She might become. She goes to head back to her dad's headquarters, right? Because she goes to back to hang out with Lord Marshal Cry. And then she goes towards the barn, and she passes General Mitterick, who he gave her a solemn nod, and right there she was like, something's wrong. Normally he's pretty like smug and stuff, but And then as she gets closer to the barn, she sees that Baez. He walks away from the doorway. She starts to feel a little worse, and then she comes inside, and then her father's there, and he just says Finn, and he smiles at her, and then he just says, "Well, there it is." And then he sits down in a chair, sighs, and undid his top button, which she had not seen him do in 20 years.
That's pretty crazy to think about, actually.
Yeah.
That line.
Uh-huh. And then she turns right back around, about face, probably crisp and prompt of a, turn. And she goes, she finds Baez. She's like, you, I want to speak with you. So, ultimate white Karen coming to play here. How?
Hey, Daddy, you know how long he's been in the company?
And then and I like how Baez was like, you know what? And I wanted to speak to you actually. Happy chance. And then he looks at Yoru, and he says, all we hear him say is, take him the money as we agreed, and send for the plumbers. Yoru nods and walks away.
That's definitely code.
Yeah, for something, which we'll
There's
see.
there's definitely nothing that replies plumbing in the north.
Except maybe your one-off well or something. And then then Finry cuts him off. She says, "You cannot replace him." And he goes, "What are we talking about?" She goes, "My father, as you well know." And Baya's like, I didn't replace him. Your father had the good grace and the good sense to resign." And she snaps. She's like, "He is the best man for the task. He's the only one who did a thing to limit this pointless bloody slaughter. The king needs men who," and then he interrupts her and says, "The king needs men who obey." And then she says, "You don't have the authority." And then, because she goes, "My, father's a Lord Marshal with a chair in the close council. Only the king himself can remove him." And then,
Oh, the shame!
yeah, very sarcastic. "Undone by the very rules of government that I myself drafted." Oh, and then he pulls out a scroll, unfurls it, and he says, "Well, then I suppose this carries no weight either. Ahem. By royal decree, Harold Ambrock is to be restored to his father's seat on the open council. Some of the family estates near Keln will be returned, along with lands near Ostenhorn, from which it will be hoped your husband will attend to his new responsibilities as Lord Governor of Angland." Ahem.
Oh,
Oh,
That's
oh,
a development.
that's a big development. And then Baez leans into her, not into her, but he leans closer to her, and he goes, "Well, how could the king not be moved by such loyalty, such bravery and sacrifice as the young Lord Brock displayed? Not to mention the courage and tenacity of his wife, who, captured by the Northmen, mark you, poked Blackdow in the eye and demanded the release of 60 prisoners. Why, his august majesty will have to be made of stone. He is not, in case you were wondering. Few men less so indeed." He just had to throw in that little bit of a barb at poor Giselle.
he's just like so disgusted by Giselle. Always has been.
Yeah, and then he tells Finry that Giselle wept when he read the dispatch that described your husband's heroic assault, and then he ordered this paper drawn up and signed within the hour. And then I like how he leans even closer and he's like pointing out on the scroll. He goes, "I bet if one was to look closely, inspect this document, one could see the marks of His Majesty's earnest tears staining the vellum."
I actually I love the fact that he uses the word vellum because
Vellum.
he also refers to the document as paper later, and
Mm-hmm.
paper and vellum are not the same thing.
Same concept.
You know, this guy that just has to be knowledgeable about everything. He's just so wrong. I don't know if that's just Joe Abercrombie using thesaurus for his paper words, but I don't know.
Definitely.
Maybe.
And for anybody that doesn't know, vellum is animal skin, and paper is obviously plant fiber.
Animal skin? Yeah, everybody knows that, George. They're both animal skin. Bias is always right. Hashtag bias for president.
I'm pretty sure your one of your best documents is written on vellum. You know,
Oh, one
Best
of them.
document. What kind of document do you think that is?
the really famous one.
Declaration, I think, the Constitution.
It might
No.
be vellum. I'm not sure.
Vellum is an American, brother. We would never do that on a non-American.
Yeah, the Declaration's written on dried British tea leaves, don't you know? So
But essentially the souls of our enemies, you know.
It's actually written on Native American vellum.
Oh, Jesus Christ! All right. So anyway,
Metaphorically.
Finry, for the kind of like looks at Baez after staring at that paper for so long. She goes, "But wait a minute. It would take a week for the dispatch to reach him, and then another week for it to return. But it's only been a day." And then he goes, "Call it magic." He says His Majesty's carcass may be a week away, but his right hand, a little closer by. But then he goes,
It's pretty nuts, isn't it?
"Yeah, I know." But then he adds, "But none of that matters now. Since you say I have not the authority, I shall burn this worthless paper, shall I?" And then she like kind of goes, "No, wait. And then he goes, "Oh, so you no longer object to your father's replacement?" And then she she thanks herself and she goes, "War is hell and all that, but it presents opportunities." And then she says, "He resigned."
I love the fact that Baez is so willing after, he's kind of got this taste of power again, I think, after last argument of the Kings, and he's just willing to give up loads of secrets. Like, he's just willing to basically tell people that he's really in charge now.
Well, I
True.
imagine that's just because he had to make his return. Like when when Feekt died.
Yeah, but he's just telling this random person that he doesn't know very well that, oh yeah, I'm actually in charge of the king.
Well,
Well, I will say that I feel like Baez is always this way. We just haven't seen him in this position yet.
right.
Because
That's
he
what I'm
was
saying. Yeah, that's what I think. I think because we didn't see him, for some time, right? But I bet you when he had Lord Chancellor Feekt around.
Oh,
I bet.
absolutely. I think it's interesting that this is the development that we're getting for Baez.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
Baez is real confident, just slinging that dick around everywhere. So
Those slapping fruits.
slapping fruits, sopping wet from the bath. Anyway, and then he tells her that, "Oh wow, you impressed me once again. Well, my earnest congratulations on your husband's meteoric rise to power and your own, of course, lady governess." And she goes to take the scroll, and then he kind of he still holds it, and then he takes he puts with his other hand he puts his finger under her chin. He goes, "But remember this though. People love heroes, but new ones can always be found. With one finger of one hand I make you. With one finger of one hand I can unmake you." And she says, "I understand. Gulp." And then he goes, "Well, then I wish you good day. Please convey the happy news to your husband," and all that. But then he says, "Keep it between yourselves for the time being. Uh, you know, you gotta. People might not appreciate, how the magic quite works. But I will tell your Majesty about your husband's acceptance." And then, yeah, you don't forget that you're gonna have to come to Adwa for all the formalities, the appointment, and all that jazz, the parade, yada yada yada. and then, the last line he says to her before walking away is, you really should procure some better clothes, something with a heroic air." Oh. Then we get a bit of a break, and Finry is back in the room with Hal while he's recuperating.
But
And,
as a side note, before we get out of that, I love how Baez is just like showing his true colors all the way, and is
oh yeah,
absolutely like he's very intimidating here. Like I was like, oh shit, there he's like, I can smite you with a finger, and I love that like full fledged villainy kind of like big bad evil guy, which I know he's more complex than that, but like I love that this is how he's portrayed because this is kind of how he actually is. Even
mhm,
though he's got some layers, like
yeah,
I love that. Like we're seeing him in his natural state. He's not really trying to manipulate anybody here. He's just showing his authority, and I think it's so cool and
yeah,
awful.
yeah.
Exactly. Well, you really get the feeling that this is just Baez's playground.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Baez is never in any danger. He's
No.
just chilling and watching all these people die for him, and he's just like, "Yeah,
Okay.
this is the way that things should be."
Yeah, he's always got his hands in like some kind of political situation one way or another. Like we kind of saw the from second hand or third hand, like the machinations of like what Ambassador of Cold when Yoru's trying to go around influence things in Styria. We're seeing it, firsthand with Baez, being, there, and then we'll see that eventually. But yeah, very
yeah.
much true. Um, and Finnery goes back to the room with Hal, and Hal's awake. He sees her, and he's like, "Oh, you came?" She's like, "Of course." Uh, and he says like he's very lucky to have her. That he heard that she dragged him out of the rubble. And then she goes, "Well, it was actually Bremadan Gorse who found you and carried you. I just ran around crying, really." And I like this funny part about what Hal says. He goes, "Well, you've always cried easily. It's the one thing. It's one thing I love about you, which is like it's funny because I don't imagine Finnery crying easily, right?" But then she goes to tell him like, "Listen, something wonderful has happened." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, peace." And he's about to go back to sleep. And she goes, "No, not that. Well, yes, but listen to me. You're getting your father's seat in the open council." He's like, "What?" "Yeah, some of his lands, and as well as they want you to take Mead's place." And he kind of was like, what are you talking about? The like general of his division? She goes, no, Lord Governor of England. And then he's like, wait a minute, why me?
He's like already on her. He's like, what did
Yeah.
you do?
Yeah, because she goes, well, because you're a good man, a hero, your deeds have come to the notice of the king. And he's like, how did you do it? What'd you do? And then she goes,
It's,
you
it,
did
it,
it.
it's kind of sad, isn't it? Because like Hal is kind of laboring on this idea that the union is still a meritocracy, and we absolutely know that the union is not a meritocracy. I mean, every single person that we know has bought their commission in. If you want to get a promotion, you just know who to pay. That's pretty much how this works.
That's true.
So him laboring away and doing the good thing and all that is not really doing him any favors.
And he's not believing it really, but she keeps like, no, no, it was all because of that. Hard work and loyalty and all those things leading from the front. That's how you get on. You were right after all. He's like,
I'm
wait a
sure that her treating a close loved one with this kind of cushion, will not have any kind of consequences. I don't even know why you guys would think this is a bad thing. So
No,
what's the worst
no.
that could happen? She treats her son the same way. If she had a son, and
Yeah, I know.
but
That
then
could
she's
never
like
go
a
wrong,
soft,
ever.
weak little petty man.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Anyway, so then she goes, look, you just rest now. You just relax. And then he whispers that he loves her. She says she loves him too.
Oh,
And she's like, as he's going back to sleep, she's, touching his face, and you're like, he is a good man, one of the best, honest, brave, loyal to a fault. They were well matched, optimist and pessimist, dreamer and cynic. And what is love anyway? But finding someone who suits you, someone who makes up for your shortcomings, someone you can work on.
Work on.
And
which
that's
is
the
the
I
same
love,
part
I
she works
love
with.
that repetition. That repetition is so good. I love Joe for that. Every
Mhm.
single time he does it,
Yep.
it works so well at the beginning and at the end. And when you know the whole story, perfect.
Yeah, no, it's a great. So I enjoy that chapter, and it's the end of that chapter. I mean, boys, what are your thoughts? What are your ratings?
As a chapter in and of itself, I reckon I'd give it a 6. It does wrap things up very well, and you get a lot of good character moments. But they're mostly not about Finri, which I don't like that much, because Finri
Yeah.
kind of reacts off other characters a lot in the story. I will talk about her a lot when we come to the big spoiler video that we're going to do eventually. But yeah, I reckon a 6.
You guys know I love Baez and I like his show here. But I also like to there's so many times in Joe's books, especially in the later books, which I think he does really well, where he's like, yeah, you think this person might have changed. And they kind of have, but they're doing the same thing. It's so interesting how he has the perception of living people, and how we are always either one way or the other. Either we are thinking to ourselves, I'm so different now, but we do the same things, or we think I'm no different at all, but you do act differently.
Right.
And he's so brilliant at portraying that.
I do also like the fact that the characters also portray different opinions to what is actually portrayed in the narratives. So, like you say, people do change over time slowly, but all the characters seem to think that people change all at once and not at all.
Yeah. Yes, it's good, and I think for that I'm gonna give it. It's fairly short and not too much. I'm gonna say a 6 and a knuckle. I think it's good, but I wanted more.
Yeah, we always want more.
Yeah. I mean, it's a short chapter. I'm gonna give it a 6. I enjoy it. It's good. We see Finnery dealing with the guilt, that she's feeling regarding Elise when she's confronted with Colonel Brent. And I mean, you can't blame her. Like, how do you navigate a situation like that, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, she did try. That's the crazy thing. She did try, but at the same time, she does feel guilt because Dow gave her a choice. It's either you stay or you go, but one of
Yeah.
you is staying. And it's like, I mean, who wouldn't?
She was absolutely right. She was absolutely right in making the decision that she made.
Yeah.
And, who fucking wouldn't?
Right.
And I love the fact that she continually regrets it. Throughout, ever since that moment, she's always thinking about it. She's always thinking throughout every single chapter she has,
Mhm.
I'm so glad that wasn't me, or feeling the finger slip when she let go,
Yeah.
or something like that, and just keeping us back to that chapter without necessarily explicitly referring to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like a lot of authors would just be like, and then Finn remembered when she was in the room with with Elise, and she was taken away, and it was very sad. Brandon Sanderson.
Oh damn.
Oh, jeez. Damn, that might be. Stop it. Stop it.
There's every other author.
Every other author. That's funny. Oh yeah, so I mean, I enjoy for because of that, and then you see her coming to the defense of her father, but then when confronted between that, it's like the desire to defend her father, but then also on the other side, her ambition, right? And now it's like, uh-oh. And then you see, like, at the end of the day, it's like, well, he resigned, so I kind of have an out to be like, well, I can pursue this and not feel so guilty, right, about this. And then you see Bias's, his manipulations behind the scenes, and pretty much pretty overtly as well. And then her and Hal comforting each other, which is nice. And her telling her that telling him that it was all because of his heroic antics, that's why he's promoted. I mean, on the face of it, that's what Bias told her, and that's what she's relaying to him. But on the really what it is because she's kind of shown Bias that, oh, she's sharp as a tack. She is fiercely ambitious, so she wants to scale that ladder. And
Yeah.
Baez will always he always likes to make use of people like that. So yeah, I get 6 out of 9 fingers for me. Via menace.
You should.
So now we'll move on to our next segment, which is best meme of the week. Georgie boy, that's you. Take it away.
So this week we have the Bloody Niner, who is a good friend of the podcast, and we're going to go and see him soon, aren't we, guys?
Yes.
Yep.
Very soon.
We're gonna go see him down in somewhere in North America, and I won't say any more than that. I'm not doxing anyone, but the meme this week is the classic: the two guys on the bus, and one's having a good time, one's having a bad time. And it's the Rogon paradox: the piss in the shower, shower and the piss. Yeah, and the shower and the piss guy is the happy one. If you didn't know.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, we know which one. We know which one Rogan likes.
Yeah. It's funny that that's a quite a common trope, isn't it, in fiction, that powerful people have these weird fetishes. And Rogon is like such a good archetype for that because he's like a really handsome guy. He's been pretty much brought into everything. Yeah, he lives in Styria, so there's all sorts of power play going on like that. But he's still that little bit insecure that he needs to be pissed on every now and then.
That was very in depth.
Yeah, people like that. They just they like to be humiliated. Or maybe they just like the taste of ammonia. Who knows?
That is, I did read a theory about that. Some people
Oh
are just.
god.
It's like like Pico, where you just have the impulse to eat like dirt and metal and stuff. Have you never heard of that?
No.
It's like a real mental disorder where you just have the urge to eat things that aren't good for you. And I say good for you, not edible. In fact, there was a man that ate an entire airplane over the course of a year, like just ate the individual parts of it.
It's a little crazy.
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy. A little crazy. I think some people are just a little bit crazy.
That's true. Anyways.
Hold on for a second.
Oh, never mind, George. Keep going. My bad.
I was going to say, am I rambling a bit too much? Yeah, probably
No,
am.
keep going.
No, I think we're good now.
Now it's off. Yeah. Now you're
I've
trying
lost
to
the flow now.
Yeah, you ruined it. I've lost the flow.
Long story short, Rogon likes to get pissed on. Why? We don't know. I'd love to see a Rogon POV where he goes
Would
into
you?
depth about why.
Why? Please, no, George.
I need to understand. Oh dear.
Hold on for a second, boys. I'm sorry.
Do you reckon Joe would just go more crazy? Because he never gets too graphic. I realize now. When I was 15, when I read these books,
Yeah.
I never thought I thought they were really gory. The Glock to torture scenes and stuff like that were like, oh my god, this is shocking. When I was 15,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's really tame actually. Thinking about
That's
it.
nothing.
Yeah, no. Reading about how they actually used to torture people back like 500 years ago, it's like, yeah, no, that's pretty tame actually.
Yeah, it's not nearly as bad.
Have you listened to Hardcore History?
We
Yeah,
talked about this.
yeah. I love hardcore history.
The episode about the uprising in, I can't remember that. I think it was Munster during the Protestant Reformation.
Yes.
So there's like these people called the Mennonites, who basically mean not the Mennonites, the Anabaptists, which basically meant you had to be rebaptized, and it was heretical. And they took over the city for like 2 years, and it was
Damn.
just like this complete microcosm of a tiny little society that slowly became a dictatorship.
That's crazy.
And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just absolutely incredible to like read the accounts of it.
I
But
must not
yeah,
have
no,
read
they
that.
tore those people apart with like red hot irons.
Eesh.
And the rule was you had to suffer for an hour,
Terrible.
which meant if you passed out, they would revive you and then do it again.
Oh, fuck that.
That's a little.
But that was standard. Like people came to watch it because it was entertaining.
Jeez. Yeah.
But that was only like 500 years ago. Like,
not a far.
not that different now.
No. Just wanted to say sorry, boys. I was texting a lady.
Oh, we'll talk about that after.
As usual.
All right. Well, thank you for that meme of the week, Georgia boy. And folks, as usual, we will again call to action, get onto the subreddits, First Law or House of the Meme Maker, and just start, just keep making those memes, plugging them
Make
all.
us some memes.
We love them. So we'll move on to our next chapter read through, which is terms. And well, this one is from the perspective of our favorite, well, not our favorite, our only incel so far, Berman Danforth.
I'm pretty sure Giselle's an incel at this point.
How dare you, good sir? He absolutely would if he could. If he was a monster.
Well, that still means he's celibate, but not by choice.
No,
That's
no,
literally what it means, incel.
the dude has concubines. He's a king.
No, because are you
But
actually?
he wouldn't.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
he
No,
does.
hang on.
He does.
Giselle? No, he doesn't.
We
Actually,
we confirmed this in Burst of Cold. Yes, he does.
how did he confirm it?
He was very nervously talking to Monzik.
And then he
says
passed
because
that because he got too nervous.
they completed the number of heirs that they needed to make or whatever,
Right.
3 kids. And
Yeah,
so
but that just means that they have an agreement. Doesn't necessarily mean that he does have concubines.
Bruh. I'm telling you.
Nah.
Giselle
is not like
He's
that.
tapping
Giselle-
ass. He's tapping ass. You stop it.
Or maybe that's what we call a vol cell.
He's tapping ass.
So it's an involuntary.
Sorry, he's tapping ass. You might wish him to be that morally upstanding. Trust me, the man is tapping ass. All right.
Okay. I'm I can't dispute.
He's a king, for Christ's sake. He's got to sling dick just for the sake of the image of royalty. You know what I mean? So it's Berman Danforth's perspective that we're looking. What happened?
I said I'm pretty sure it's the opposite of the way it works.
So we're looking at this from the perspective of Bremer Dangorst, and the union side, they're here at the table ready to do terms, to negotiate terms, for a peaceful solution, an armistice, what have you, of the battle, of the war, and it's Bremen Gore standing, but General Miderick sitting, Bias sitting, as well as the Dogman is there sitting, and then we have some other men of Miderick's staff standing close to Gorst, and then we have men, I believe, of the 12th Regiment. Is that correct, George?
Mm-hmm.
The 12th, and you know, as they're waiting for the Northmen to come down from the heroes, Gorse is out here, thinking his usual thoughts of, just straight up cynicism, hatred, self hatred. He even considers like maybe I will go over to Black Dow and be a celebrated hero of the North, the most bloodiest man in the North, and whatever.
He really should. He really should.
He, just
Maybe he might be happy. If
he
did
might
that.
be happy, maybe. You're
Probably
right.
not, knowing this guy, but
No. And so, but then he kind of snaps out of it when Baez says finally, and then they look and they see a bunch of Northmen come to the top of the heroes. Then there's another group that gets it's a little bit closer down. One of them being the biggest man Gorse has ever seen, which I think we all know is Stranger Come Knocking, and then a little detachment from that group. About 4 people, and then so then 4 people approach the table, but blacked out. There's no sign. We don't need to rehash why there's no sign of blacked out. But
will be explained very shortly.
And I like how, in Gore's perspective, he sees that the foremost of them had a fine cloak, handsome face, and the slightest mocking smile. He says no one had ever looked more carelessly, confidently in charge, and I hate him already. And so Miderick asks, who is this guy? And Dogman's the one that says Calder, Bethod's youngest son, and a snake. And I like how Baez chimes in. He goes, more of a worm, but it is Calder. And then talks about 2 warriors that are flanking Calder. One that's pale skinned, pale haired, pale fur. So I think we wonder who this guy is. And the other heavy set with the broad, weathered face. This one turns out to be Ricci. And then
Side note, I really like how Bias is more of a worm. Like he's less than a snake. He doesn't have a bite.
Less than wretched.
He's less than wretched.
More of a worm. Yep. And then there's a 4th guy that follows, axe at his belt, terribly scarred on one cheek. His eye gleamed as if made of metal. But Gorse blinks because he's like, I feel like I've seen this guy from somewhere. Did I see him in the battle yesterday? Or the day before? Or somewhere before that?
Somewhere that smelled like...
well, anyway. Calder, he goes, well, you must be Marshal Croy. And Miderick goes, no, Marshal Miderick. And Calder smiles. And he goes, aha, well, how nice to finally meet you. We faced each other yesterday across the barley on the battlefield. That charge of yours, magnificent. And Miderick is he's not saying anything. But he gets up. It says his pink neck bulging over his stiff collar. And then
I love a load of Joe's characters that you can just see like Futurama's version of Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
How dare you?
But Miderick doesn't say anything, and then Calder, he kind of pushes. He goes, in fact, let me think. I think, and he like roots in his pockets. He pulls out a piece of paper. He goes, I have something of yours, and he tosses it on the table. And and Miderick grabs it, looks at it, and just like crumples it so tightly that his knuckles turned white. And we know what that was. That was the order that Calder intercepted.
Nice.
And then,
I like that. I like that it's shown off. He's like, hey. Joe always has some little payoff whenever 2 characters that meet. It's nice.
Mm-hmm.
I love how Calder had this in his pocket the whole time, even though he thought he was going to die.
Like the one good thing he did.
Yeah, he's like, I'll just hold on to that. Yeah, whatever.
My victory. My dude.
And then he turns his attention to Baez. He goes, the first of the Magi. The last time we spoke was a humbling experience, and don't worry, I've had many others since then. You will not find a more humbled man anywhere. Even though we know that's a goddamn lie.
And it's definitely not foreshadowing that.
Then he introduces Carl Ricci and Pale as Snow as a second. And then he doesn't forget his respected champion, which Dogman actually interjects and says, "Carl Shivers." And he it says it's been a while. And then Shivers just simply says back, I. And then Calder goes, "The Dogman we all know, of course. The Bloody Nine's bosom companion and all those songs along with them. Are you well?" And then Dogman just ignores him. And then he just asks, "Where's Dow?" And then Calder goes, "I'm sorry to say he won't be coming. Black Dow is back to the mud." And then there was a silence. And Dogman, he kind of reiterates, he goes, "Dead?" And he slumps back in his chair. And Gorse noted as if he had been informed of the loss of a dear friend rather than a bitter enemy. And honestly, that's the truth when it comes to them. Remember, Dogman and Dow were close. And if we remember when Dow kind of made his play, to take out the Bloody Nine, he asked where the Dogman was. And when they said that he's in Adjoa, he goes, "Great, this makes this a lot more easier."
Yeah, I like that. The way he says this, in Gore's perception, his perception is that they are bitter enemies, and because of his previous experience just a minute ago with Weirin, he's thinking about how that reminds him of some deep bond of friendship. He doesn't know their history, right? Or at least not to an extreme degree. I think he's thinking of it as it's almost like they're friends, but I know I can get those two mixed up.
Right.
And so I think that's a very clever way of saying that. Inside world building, Gorse doesn't exactly know, but in Gorse's vision, he actually sees that loss of friendship in the Dogman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does. And then,
I mean, it's very clear that Dogman had a huge amount of respect for Dow.
oh yeah, they were homies.
And I feel like at the end, the reason why that Dogman doesn't like Dow is because he killed Logan. But also in the end, Dogman didn't like Logan that much. He just felt this loyalty towards him.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is all about Dogman just did what he thought was right? Like Logan was the chief, was the king, and Dow kind of betrayed him. And yeah, so Dogman had to kind of declare war, but
even though Dow was basically in the right, I mean Logan was a fucking bastard.
Yeah, very true.
And as bad as Dow is, Dow doesn't accidentally or purposefully kill people in the middle of battle that are on his side for no reason.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Very true. And then Calder continues, and he says that the protector of the North and I had a disagreement, and we settled it in the traditional way with a duel. And Dogman is in disbelief. He goes, "And you won?" And Calder goes, "Well, I'm alive and he's dead, so yeah, it's a strange morning." And they've taken to calling me Black Calder. And then Dogman, sorry, Freudian slip, I miss him. Dogman, he goes, "Is that a fucking fact?" And so Dogman's in disbelief, and he's when we knew Dogman, we knew him to be a kind of a neutral kind of guy, very chill. But now he's grown into this. He's grown into being a chief, for some time now, and so I feel like he's more confident. He's more entrenched in his ways. Uh, and then Calder goes, "Well, listen, I'm really about peace. I don't really. I think this battle was a waste of time and money and lives." He goes, "Peace is the best part of any war, if you're asking me."
And I love how it kind of, in the way that the page reads, it says, "I heartily concur," and then the word Mitterick, and it sounds like it is Mitterick that said that. But then it all goes on to say that Baez is the one that said it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really interesting device. If you're reading it, if you're doing the audiobook, it doesn't sound as good. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you. I'm tracking.
But I still think it's a good line. Baez is taking over the conversation here.
Mm-hmm. And then
even though Mitterick is ostensibly the leader.
Right. And then Baez, he goes, "Well, the settlement I propose is simple." And then Calder gets in a little jab, is like, "Yeah, well, my father always said that simple things stick best. You remember my father." And even apparently Baez hesitated just for a slight moment. He was like, "Yep, I do." Anyway, here's this map. And the White Flow shall remain the northern boundary of England, the northern frontier of the Union, as it has been for hundreds of years. Calder goes, well, things change. And Baez goes, this one will not. He continues to say that the land between the White Flow and the Cusk, including the city of Ophirth, shall come under the governorship of the Dogman. It shall become a protectorate of the Union with 6 representatives on the open council. And Calder goes, ooh, all the way to the Cusk? That's some of the best land in the north. And he looks at the Dogman and goes, on the open council, protected by the Union. What would Scarling Hoodless have said? What would my father have said? And then Dogman throws it back at him like, who gives a shit what dead men think? Things change.
Nice.
So, Calder.
This supposed peace agreement kind of reminds me of something that's going on right now, but I won't say.
Don't
I
say
wonder
it.
what you could mean.
Oh yeah, I'll have some of your land, and you'll just agree to it.
Right.
I don't know what it could be, George.
I don't know. It could be one of many conflicts that are going on right now.
So Calder, he does acquiesce. He goes, he at least he acquiesced in at first. He goes, the North needs peace. I am content. And Baez is like, okay, great. So then Baez is like, great. All right. So now we could just go ahead and start signing things. And then Calder interrupts him. He goes, oh, whoa. Don't get me twisted now. I'm happy with this, but I'm not alone. The Dow's war chiefs, they are, they're jealous and they have all the swords. I can't just agree to anything or else, they might kill me. And then next time you want to talk, you might find some stubborn people like KM Ironhead or some, vainglorious goofball like Glamour Golden. Good luck finding terms then. He goes, I'm all for this myself, all for it. But let me take it away and convince my people, and then we can meet again to sign the papers. And then Baez frowns and he's like, tomorrow then. And then Calder's like, the day after would be better.
Don't push me, Calder.
And then Calder goes, I don't want to push it at all, but I'm not blacked out. I'm more spokesman than tyrant. And Dogman is just like, spokesman. And then Baez says that will not be good enough. But Gorski notes that Calder's smirk was made of steel. And he goes,
Steel!
He says, if only you knew how hard I've worked for peace all this time, the risk I've taken for it. Help me to help us all.
I like how...
What a classic politician's line.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's funny how, Calder starts using these big words and starts trying to be manipulative. One, because he's, riding the high, being like, oh, yeah, my plan worked. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm the king. And part of it's because he's used to dealing with Northmen. But I think it's pretty clear in this conversation, as much as we want Calder to be, in a position of power, Baez totally outmatches him in every single way. I don't mean... I mean the negotiation. I mean, he's really got nothing, ultimately.
Well, not really. I mean, not as far as we see here. No, as far as
he has the same leverage that Dow did the day before when they were willing to retire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that wasn't even really Baez's choice, was it?
Yeah, but now that they've stopped fighting, good luck getting those Union men to fight again. I mean, it'll happen if
that's a big thing, isn't it? When you're raring to go and you're fighting and you've been told to fight, that's one thing. But you can't be, like you say, warmed up again to fight again the next day when you've been told to stand down.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that takes a huge toll on your brain.
And then to the point, Gorst is noticing that Baez's every effort was bouncing right off. Calder is deflecting. He's like, this is great, yeah, but whatever. And so what he's doing, and we'll see this in the next chapter when he talks about it, is that he's making them wait. Because the more you make them wait, the farther the Union men are. They're far from home. They want to get home, right? And it's gonna put more pressure, even on someone like Baez that has to. At the end of the day, people. He needs people that are alive. He can't just kill everybody, right? You know what I mean? So it's gonna. He's looking for favorable terms. All Calder's doing is just playing the dunce, but he's really playing a long game. At least so far.
I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, Calder, we get this in the next chapter as well, and we'll talk about that. But Calder knows that the longer that the Union sit there, far from home, unprepared, not in the right land that these people are used to, that they're slowly going to just starve and wither away,
Right.
get weaker every day.
Right, and especially since like if they're not there fighting, then what the fuck are they doing there? They should be getting back home.
Exactly, they're all just sitting there getting diphtheria.
Yep. And so, Calder stands and he reaches, to offer his hand, like a handshake to the dog man. And then he goes, I know that we've been on different sides for a long time, one way or another, but if we're to be neighbors, there should be no chill between us. Dogman says, different sides, that happens, time comes, you gotta bury it. And he stands and stares at Calder in the eye. And he says, but you killed Forley the weakest, never did no harm to no one, that lad. Came to give you a warning, and you killed him for it. And Calder, for one, stopped smiling. And he goes, there isn't a morning that comes that I don't regret it. And then Dogman goes, well, here's another. Puts a finger to his nostril and fucking hawks a loogie right into Calder's hand. And
It's just fucking awesome.
And then Dogman, he's bad. He goes, step foot south of the cusk, and I'll cut the bloody cross in you. Then there will be no chill. And he walks away. I'm like, God damn, we don't ever really see that out of Dogman, but fuck.
Man, this moment seems so modern. Just the word chill.
Mhm.
There'll be some chill, and there'll be no chill.
Well,
It
no,
sounds a
well,
little-
That is not an
That
old
is-
fact.
no,
Sounds almost a little Gen
I've
Z,
heard,
doesn't it?
like, no,
cap.
No, oh my God. People can say like the relationships were chilly or they're chilled relationships. Yeah, that means they're not on good
Yeah.
terms.
Yeah,
I know.
I've heard it obviously, but I mean, like for the time period, I mean, it sounds very modern.
Well, you're just too chill. So anyway,
I might be too chill, but I like that. I like the fact that it's not all wordy and Shakespearean.
right.
Again, this is just Joe writing real people. I love the fact that we can understand what they're saying.
Yeah. And then I like how Midoric kind of cuts the tension a little bit. He goes, so we're gonna reconvene soon. And Calder goes, absolutely. He wipes his hand off the table, and he goes, in 3 days. And then he turns around to go talk to Shivers. And then Midoric is mumbling to Midoric is talking to Bias. He goes, this Calder's a slippery bastard. I would have rather dealt with Black Dow because at least it seemed like you at least knew what you were getting with Black Dow. The Gorst is starting to everything's starting to kind of fade out for Gorst here, because he's staring at Calder and his scarred henchman and thinking to himself, I know him, I know that face, but from where? And so Baez is talking about how Dow is a fighter, Calder's a politician. He realizes we are keen to leave and that when the troops go home, we will have nothing to bargain with. He knows that he can win far more by sitting still and smirking than Dow ever did with all the steel and fury in the north. So that's to the point that me and George were making earlier.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I just kind of meant in the way that, you mean
earlier?
Yeah, I mean, he thinks he's clever, and he is to a point, but he does not compare to somebody like Baez, intellectually.
No, not at all. I mean, Calder has completely inherited this situation. He didn't have a single say in the way that the situation turned out at all, except getting into the fight with Dow and being saved by a literal Deus Ex Machina in the form of Shivers.
Yeah. No, you're right. But even look, somebody like Bias, they're gonna have off days, or maybe they're not gonna have 100% win rate, more like 97, 98. But that small percentage exists. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
And so then but Gorst is still looking at Calder and Shivers turns his face away, and he looks and he sees Shivers' unburned side, in a profile, and Gorst just his stomach just drops. And he thinks, Sapani. And he thinks about that face.
That face in the smoke before he was sent tumbling down the stairs. That face. How could it be the same man?
Yeah, and then he says, and yeah, he was almost sure. And then everything fades as Gorst, he walks around the table onto the Northman side of the children. And one of Calder's retainers grunted as Gorst shouldered him out of the way. And then he keeps walking. Calder, glances up and he takes like a little step back, like he's nervous. And Shivers turns to look, and he's not angry, but he's not even afraid. And somebody's shouting, "Colonel Gorse!" But Gorse just ignores it, and he grabs Shivers by the arm and he pulls him close. And then the war chiefs that are by the stones, they're all frowning. Stranger come knocking, takes a step, and Glamour Golden is calling out for the rest of for the Carls.
It's getting
And
tense.
it's getting real tense. And then Calder's shouting in Northern, like telling everyone to be calm, but he looks nervous. And then Shivers didn't even look the one bit whatever. He didn't care. He was just like, okay.
Yeah,
So
yep.
so Shivers glances down at Gorse's gripping hand, and then he looks back up at his face, and he raises the one brow over his good eye.
Have you ever been to Styria?
Styria.
Yes. To Sapani?
Sapani.
Yes. To Cardotti's House of Leisure?
Cardotti's.
And then Shivers leaned close enough almost for Gorse to kiss, closer even than they had been to each other 4 years ago in the smoke, if they had been.
Never heard of it. Fucking angry Yoda.
It's not in the book, but that's how I imagine it.
I need to point out that in the book, as like even Baez is like, Colonel Gorse, what the fuck? And then Stranger come knocking, takes another step. Everyone's getting ready. Even the 12th Regiment gets ready. They puts their hands on the weapons. All this, and Gorse did not give a shit.
No, you do not.
And then
But the funny thing is that I think this is Gorse is sort of coping here, isn't he? Because he knows immediately who it is, and he takes his word on it that it isn't him.
well,
That
because
is such a thin thing to
because
step
remember,
down from after all of that aggravation.
He's a very.
There's something about Shivers' face that's very familiar. However, in Cardotti's, Shivers still had the mask on. And he even says it here.
No, I think he took his mask off after that.
No. He even says it right here. He says he glimpsed it only for a moment and masked and without the scar, but still.
Yeah.
There's something about it. You know what I mean? It's like that thing of like, oh, I fucking can place you.
And it was before the scar.
And it was before the scar,
Anyway.
exactly.
But I think that I like that because it's not even. It's so interesting that Shivers is just like, nah. Like you could tell he's like looking at him like, seeing like I really want to know what's going on in Shivers' head here. Like, is he thinking? Is he playing it all out, thinking maybe it wouldn't be so great? It's not worth it. He doesn't want to fuck things up right now. Is he saying it because he knows what Cardotti is? Duh. It's just interesting to think about why he's, not gonna tell him the truth. I wonder why so badly.
I know. I really want to know what Shivers thinks about Ghost.
Yeah,
we should
Because
ask,
obviously he probably made the connection. Glamour Golden's probably pointed him out to him, and you're like, yeah, that's the guy that fucking beat my face and shit like that.
Well, I mean, maybe. I bet you Shivers is only making the connection right now because before, remember in Cardotti's, Shivers is adrenaline's running, pumping, and he's running upstairs, and all to his point of view, all he saw was Gorse briefly and bundles him over, right?
Yeah, he just knocks him down the stairs. And
It's kind of like fireman carries him.
Oh, he did. He ruined
his
his life.
Well, Jesus Christ.
ruined a man's life.
Anyway, they left Gorse standing there in front of the table alone, frowning up towards the heroes, almost sure. End chapter. Boys, how do you rate it?
I really like this chapter. I think it's so. It just takes the piss out of pretty much everything that's come before. This whole chapter, this whole book has been for nothing, just because Dal got killed and Calder's in charge now. I absolutely love it because this is the last 1/10 of the book. This is the climax, and it's so fucking stupid and anticlimactic that this is just the definition of Joe's style right here. And I think it's just I don't even have the words for it. I cannot put it into some kind of poetic praise, but yeah, I'll give it a 9.
Oh wow.
Full score for this one.
Damn.
Harrison.
Well, I like this chapter a lot. I think it's so cool to see these characters interact with each other. He handles escalation so well, and it is like the, like, oh, we're coming to a conclusion, and why are we here? It's just it's done well, and there's a lot of factors going on here as well. But I don't think it's, in my book, it's a 9. So I think I'm gonna give it a 7 and a knuckle.
Gonna have to agree with Harrison on this one. I mean, it's a great chapter, George. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Great chapter.
Whatever score you want, man.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
okay, just want to make sure.
I'm not judging you.
Judge away if you need to. But no, it's really good it's good character work. We see a kind of like a, not even a reunion, because I don't think we ever saw Calder and Dogman really interact. But we see kind of like a clashing of those two, right? Northern perspectives that we were both privy to. We were privy to both of them, I mean. We see Gorst almost absolutely just single-handedly ruin wartime peace negotiations. And we see how Calder can navigate, people like Baez, people like Midoric, people like Dogman. And we see how there's now, there's still a united North. And even now, you see someone like Stranger Come Knocking probably wouldn't have stepped forward if it was Dow in charge, but for Calder, which we saw like after the duel, he's all, yay, Black Calder. I'm for Black Calder as the king of the Northmen.
It's funny how he sounds.
So yeah, I mean, it's a good chapter. I enjoy it. So 7 out of 9, 7 and a knuckle out of 9 fingers for me. All right, folks. So what we'll do is we'll do a little pre-character spot, until we do the actual one after this next chapter read through. And I would just like to shine a spotlight on the lowly, the misbegotten, the trodden, and this guy. This is the poor Northman that Gore shoved aside in his haste to go to Shivers. People like this, they get stepped on by the big man, both literally and figuratively. And it's just not right. This guy, he probably has a nice little pottery business on the side, and he's out here pressed into wartime. And for some reason, he's chosen to be a retainer for Calder while he goes to peacetime negotiations. And meanwhile, when this fucking maniac of a Union man, this giant slab of a Union man, decides to snap,
pushes right past him.
He pushes right past him.
Without a word.
Without a goddamn word, just a grunt, if that. Probably sat ass down in the grass. Probably shat himself.
You know what this guy's northern name is going to be after this? Chip on shoulder.
Chip on shoulder.
Because he's just constantly salty about everything.
So dumb.
And he got knocked in the shoulder, and he does pottery. Chip on shoulder.
Okay. Okay, hold on. You might have something here.
Guys, he's nothing. He means nothing. Get your head out of the gutter. Start thinking
That's
about the
why
real
he's got a
character.
chip on his shoulder.
He's a.
Oh God.
Think about it. Well, look what we've come to. Last chapter we did Black Tau. Last episode. And what are we doing now?
We've come
Chip
a long,
on shoulder, man.
We've come a long way from what was the first Eggs Man? Yeah, Eggs Man, the guard for the House of the Maker.
Eggs.
What was the first one? Malika what?
Malika who?
Malika who? Oh, what did you say so?
Sick you say. Love that guy.
Yeah, so listeners, take a long time to appreciate how long we've come from the 136, 37 this episode, isn't it?
Yes.
So if you've been listening that long, thank you.
Yeah, really, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. You're troopers, all of you. Well, that's gonna be.
Sorry, Jeff. And we'd love to know what your favorite character spot is. So leave that as a comment.
Throw that in there. Maybe we should make a poll on Spotify. Maybe we gotta ask one of the homies on Discord to just post in our name by proxy.
No, don't say that.
Okay.
The Reddit Mafia will be out for us.
Fuck them. Anyway, but that's the end of our pre-character spot. So we'll move on to our third and final chapter read-through, which is in my Vin Diesel voice, family. So,
Family.
jeez, you sounded like Groot,
Batman.
which I guess is technically Vin Diesel. Or yeah, Batman. You did sound like Batman a little bit.
You said Groot, which is technically Vin Diesel. That was awesome.
I just, the only thing I've seen out of the Fast and Furious films is every single scene of Vin Diesel is holding a Corona. So that's all I associate Vin Diesel with now. It's just,
It's just Coronas.
yeah, I'm a Corona man.
You know, that guy, he fucked up. I just continue making the Fast and Furious movies. He should have went back to Pitch Black, Chronicles of Riddick. Anyway.
Yes, Riddick is fucking fantastic.
Right? Anyway. This is we're back in the perspective of Calder. Well, actually, I say back in the perspective. I mean, this is the first time we're in his perspective since, you know, when he was a cheating, lying whore in the duel against Dow.
By accident.
Cocksucker, fuck him.
Yes, by accident.
Anyway, you know, he's feeling good about himself. You know, he's basically king of the Northman now. He's chilling like a villain. He's got shivers following him. You know, and he's like he likes all the war chiefs. The great war chiefs are all, you know, smiling at him as if he was the sun rising after a terrible winter. When we just know, like a day ago, or maybe even earlier that morning, they were like, "Ha ha," to this fucking guy. Anyway, he
Must feel good.
yeah, and so he knew
This is sorry, Jeff. This is probably the best turn of events for any first law character so far.
On accident, you mean?
No, ever.
you just
I mean,
like,
even Giselle becoming king wasn't great straight away. Like the second he became king, he was just like, "Oh shit, this isn't good." But for Calder, it's just like, "This is brilliant. Everybody's kissing my boots. Let's go."
I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
that is true.
Because the thing is, when Giselle became king, it was like he became king when Bias was like, "We have a bastard son of King Guslav," and then everyone went quiet, and then we just heard Pharaoh in the background laughing. All right, I know what you mean. Yeah, you're right. And you know, but Calder, don't forget, and he knows who's gonna be getting the first serving of, I guess, feeding his own shit to people. That's a weird thing to do, but anyway, he hears Call Ricci's laughter out into the night. So he was walking towards him. He sees that Ricci is sitting on a log with the pipe in hand, with some woman that's beside him. And then she looks around at Calder, and Calder nearly fell over his own feet because it's Seth, his wife,
His heavily pregnant wife.
his heavily pregnant wife, and
Wife.
wife, and then and he hugs her. They hug each other, and he whispers like, you know, sweet nothings, like that she's safe, and she jokes that like, oh, no thanks to you, and he goes, I made some mistakes. And she goes, duh, I make all your good decisions. And then he tells her, don't leave him alone again. And she goes, well, you know, she could say that it'll be the last time she stands hostage for him. And he promises her the same, right? And then he just starts weeping in front of Ricci and his named men. And he didn't give a shit. And he was just so happy to have her. And he just also was thinking that he didn't deserve this, you know? And then she asked him if something's wrong. He goes, no, you know, wasn't long ago where I thought I would never see your face again. And I like how, you know, she goes, oh, and are you disappointed? He goes, no, I never saw anything so beautiful. She goes, ooh, they're right about you. You are a liar.
I love the back and forth relationship between Seth and Calder. We see so little of it.
Yeah.
But they seem like a really good couple.
Yeah, no, they do. They do. It's awesome. It really is. And she asks him about his hand because obviously she could tell that's, you know, it's bandaged and everything, that he's hurt. And he goes, well, he's not going to be fighting any duels for a while, but he'll heal. But that Scale's dead, and that she's all his family now. You know, basically her and the baby. And then she goes, yeah, and my father too. And he looks over at Ricci. He goes, yeah, and him. And then, you know, she asks him about his father's chain. He's like, he hasn't put it on yet. And he goes, nah, just waiting for the right moment. But, you know, you're queen. It looks better on you. So he puts it on her.
Oh, how sweet.
Very sweet. And then she makes a little joke. She goes, "My husband goes away for a week, and all he brings me is the North and everything in it."
Nice.
Yeah, and then he goes, "I need to talk to your father just for a moment alone." She's like, "Okay," and then she goes, "Don't keep me waiting too long." And she leans close, and her knees rubbing against the inside of his leg, and she goes, "I have a mind to kneel before the king of the Northmen."
Not for a blowjob.
Nope, definitely for a blowjob. Definitely for a blowjob. Definitely for a blowjob. This is as blowjobs get.
The second I fucking read that sentence this week, I was just like, yeah, no, I've got to make that joke.
I thought the same thing. You've look what you've done to us, Jeffrey. We're perverts now.
The one time it is for
I-
a blowjob. Look
I
at
know,
this.
right?
Oh.
Listen, I do like the dynamic. I think it's funny how like she had like no hesitation. She's like, "Oh hey, what's up, husband? Oh yeah, you like took over the North. It's so cool. Yeah. You want to go fuck or something?" Like she's so laissez-faire about everything. Everyone else is so serious. Like this is war, and oh my god, I can't believe that. He's like crying, and she's like, "Yeah."
Yeah. Well, she's like, "I can't wait to go on you."
Calder can be like, "It's like a reward."
But I do love the fact as well that he's just so happy to see her.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like the genuine, like it takes a lot for somebody to just break down crying in front of lots of people.
So a lot of dudes that you could say are badasses or hardened warriors or whatever the case may
Yeah,
be.
and especially when they're looking to him to be hard or
He's gonna be hard, all right. Whoa.
No, it's just it's a really good interaction, isn't it?
Callan home.
You forgot the description? Okay. So, Seth walks away, and Calder's men, they step away. Ricci's men step away, and it's just Ricci and Calder just chilling on that log, right? And Calder's still like wiping the tears out of his eyes, and he's all like, "She's one of a kind, your daughter." And he's like, "You goddamn right." That's a man that's proud of his daughter right there, call Ricci. And he goes, "You're lucky to have her. Remember what I told you. Just wait long enough by the sea, and everything you want will just wash up on the beach." And he goes, "I've been around a while. You ought to listen to me." And then Calder's like, "Well, I'm listening now, aren't I?" He goes, "Yeah, all right." And he says, "A lot of my boys are restless. They've had their swords drawn a long time. They're basically just they want to get home." So
I want to say as well, that attitude of you wait long enough and everything will come to you. It's really an attitude of somebody who's been well off.
Yeah.
you know
You know
what?
what I mean?
Yeah.
It sounds like Ricci's kind of come into this by and just waited and coasted along his whole life.
Well, I mean, you don't get
You don't
get to be a named man by coasting.
Yeah, but what we've seen of him so far is just he's kind of just skimming on the edges of
I think
everything
that
we've seen.
Well, yeah, but he seems like a smart guy, though.
Yeah, I think he's
Yeah,
playing
smart,
a game.
sure.
Yeah. And I guess there is something to that adage. I mean, I would say like in my experiences a lot, I would say that like by being patient, good things actually did eventually come to
Patience, sure.
by
But
waiting.
not waiting by the beach. Waiting by the beach is something else, isn't it?
Well, he just says wait long enough by the sea, and then everything you want will wash up on the beach. That's what he said.
Sure.
He didn't say that you're gonna be chilling on the beach with pina coladas.
I
All right.
think he's basically saying like in his mind
Like,
everything works out.
Things will work out. Right. Now, he asked.
Although he's kind of, I don't know. We'll get. Sorry, we're about to get there.
We'll get to it. He asked Calder about if he's going to accept the Wizards offer, which is nice, Wizard. And Calder, he has a mind to let him simmer because he had a deal with his father, and obviously betrayed him. And then he goes, "Yeah, so it's a little bit about revenge, but also good sense that if the Union had pushed on yesterday, they might have finished us. And so the only reason that he could see for them stopping is that if they had to. Union's a big place, a lot of borders, They probably got other worries, and every day he lets that bald old fuck sit, his terms will get better. So, Richie's like, oh, Calder. You're a clever one. You're a thinker, like your father. And then he goes, always said you make quite a leader. And then Calder goes, huh, well, didn't he, and like he says to himself, I never heard him say it. And he also says, you didn't help me get here, did you? And then Richie goes, well, I told you I would burn if I had to, but I wouldn't set myself on fire. And what was it the Bloody Nine used to say?
You have to be realistic.
Why'd you say it like that? Like fucking Brother Longfoot.
No, he said it like Yoru Sulfur.
You have to be realistic. Jesus, at the very least, I'm giving an American accent. That's it. Fuck it.
You're a menace, Jeffrey.
I know. I'm sorry. And then, Calder makes he makes it a point. He makes it a point to talk about how Richie's got to be almost as pleased about this, how everything turned out, as Calder is, because his grandchildren can rule the North. When Calder's done with it, but he doesn't plan to be done with it for a long time. And Richie's like, well, I doubt I'll live to see it anyway. And and Calder smiles. He goes, hope so. And then he says this. He goes, so like I've been thinking, right, like about something that like Dow said before, and like how if he wanted me dead, like I'd have been dead. And the more I think about it, right, like the more sense it kind of makes.
I'm not sure the Valley Girl thing is working for.
I just wanted to get a reaction out of Harrison. I'm sorry.
No, that was a good. No, listeners, I'm really sad that you couldn't see that reaction from Harrison. That was a good one.
George, you were to say something though?
Yeah. So this whole conversation basically goes on that it was Cole Richie who basically fed Calder this information to turn him against Dell, and also probably orchestrated this little assassination attempt that Deep and Shallow thwarted in the first few chapters.
Yeah, he all but confirmed it. But confirmed that. Which he basically did actually, no, because he says, look, that first he did feed him the lie that Black Dow wanted him dead, because for him it's like, listen, my daughter loves you and wasn't gonna leave you no matter how much I told her to leave you, and then she goes and stands hostage for you. He's like, nah, fuck that. So he goes, one out of you and Black Dow, at least one had to go. And he goes, I'm sorry, but there it is. And if it was you, that's a shame. But then Seth would have found a new man. But the better still, there's always the chance that you would come out on top. And he's happy to say that's how it happened. And so he's ashamed to admit it, but he did stir the pot between the two of them. And then Calder catches him by saying, so it wasn't you at all who sent those boys to kill me? And then he goes, why would I do such a thing? And then basically Calder repeated everything he said. He goes, because Steph was taking hostage, and I was talking big about dealing with Dow, and you decided to stir the pot a bit harder. And then he goes, well, if you're going to stir the pot, I've always believed in doing it firmly. And so then, yeah, and then Calder talks about how he's like, yo, what the fuck? Why don't you just kill me at your fire instead of like waiting, like doing the whole cloak and dagger thing? And Richie says, I have a reputation to think about, and when it comes to knives in the dark, he hires out. He outsources his subterfuge, his assassinations. And then Calder like apparently has a face, and he goes, "Don't sit there like you're disappointed. Don't act like you haven't done worse. What about Forley, the weakest? As twice in the last two chapters, that at least once in each chapter, the last two, that Forley's been brought up, And Calder goes, "Yeah, but I'm me. Everyone knows me for like a piece of shit. He just expected better from Richie. He thought Richie was a straight edge." They thought he did things the old way. And Richie's the one's like, the old way, he goes, fuck that. He's like, I remember the old way. I was there, and it was no different from the new. Grab what you can, however you can. And he says that people like to, harp on and blame your father for how everything changed. but they just like to have someone to blame. He was just
Mm.
better at it than the rest of them. It's the winners that sing the songs, and they pick the tune, whatever tune they please.
I really like this because this is kind of, in my opinion, Joe kind of challenging the way that we see history.
Uh-huh.
Like things were always going to turn out this way. You know, whether it was Beth Hall or somebody else, there were things that were in play that we don't really see
Yeah.
that made this the way it was, not necessarily just because it was Beth Hall.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Good point.
And in response to what Ricci said, Calder, his anger gets the best of him just a little bit. He says, "I'm just figuring out what tune I'm gonna play on you or whatever." But then he stops and he goes, and he even says it out loud. He goes, "Anger is a luxury the man in the big chair can't afford." And then he says, or maybe he thought that. No, I think he says that. And then he says, "But yeah, maybe he wouldn't have done different wearing his coat in his shoes, and he has too few friends." And he needs Ricci's support. And Ricci goes, "Well, you'll have it to the death. Don't worry about it. Your family, lad. Family doesn't always get on, but in the end, they're the only ones you can trust." And then Calder goes, "Yeah. So my father used to tell me, family." And so he makes his way, he leaves Ricci there, and he makes his way back to his tent, where Shivers is waiting for him. And Shivers goes, and Calder goes, he tells Shivers, "You were right. The old fuck tried to kill me." So Shivers figured it out. And then Shivers goes, "Shall I return the favor?" And he's like, "No, no, 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 not yet, not yet." And he says, "Not until my child's born. I don't want my wife upset. Let things settle down, and then do it quietly, some way that'll point the finger at someone else. Glamour Golden, can you do that?" And then Shivers goes, "When it comes to killing, I can do it any way you want it." And then,
Oh.
and then Calder says, "I always said Dow should have made better use of you." He tells, now his wife's waiting for him, so he says, "Go have some fun." And Shivers goes, "All right, I just might." And then Calder's curious at this point. He goes, "Well, what do you do for fun anyway?" And Shivers just says, "I
sharpen my
sharpen the
knives."
knives." And Calder's like, I can't even tell if he's joking.
So
And that's
funny.
the end of that chapter. Boys, how do you rate it?
Why don't you go, Jeff?
Revelation that Ricci was the one that basically was behind it all, right? We see the reunion. Well, first of all, we see the reunion between him and Seth, and like we kind of got that first instance in that brief chapter in the beginning. But they're like, man, they're a good couple together. They really are, and they really do love each other, and they're honest in the way where they're so honest with each other that they make jokes about they can make light about their insecurities and like their character flaws, right? And mostly
Mhm.
Calder's flaws. But she's such a rock for him, and she's just such a she's one of those people that obviously can carry a lot of weight, metaphorically speaking. And it's good to see her back in on page. Sucks we don't get to see more of her, in this book.
Yeah.
But
Or
yeah,
ever.
and then we then we get the conversation between him and Ricci, and which is we get the revelation that Ricci is behind it all, at least in terms of turning Calder's focus all on Black Dow and turning his conniving ways on Black Dow. And we saw like a hint of it. We saw that glimpse when Black Dow was the one that told him like, "What the fuck are you talking about? If I wanted to kill you, I would have just killed you." And then Calder looks for Ricci, and Ricci's just kind of like, da 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 da. Ba, ba,
But he does that so many times. There's so many times where Calder's like looking at Ricci, Ricci's just like.
Well, but it really only started with that confrontation. Then it came like
It
with
is no.
no,
No. I reckon earlier, way earlier, when
nope.
no. The first time when Dow has the confrontation with Calder after he doesn't go and support Scale, he looks at Ricci, and Ricci is also looking away and doing the same thing.
Yeah. That's true. The whole time, Ricci's always been
Maybe, but
But it's definitely a setup. It's definitely a setup.
yeah, it's a setup. It's the way
Yeah.
it's written. It's different.
No, that's what I mean. Like it all ties into the same thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
agreeing with you, Jeffrey.
No, I hear what you're saying now. I'm sorry. But yes, we get that revelation that he's behind it all. Kind of just like it's because of Ricci You know what? I blame Ricci. I blame Ricci for Dao's death.
Ricci is the reason for all of this.
Butterfly effect. Fucking cocksucker. Fuck Ricci. Fucking piece of shit. Fucking motherfucking cocksucker. Fuck. I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 9 fingers.
Seven is a good score. I reckon I'm gonna go one higher. I'm gonna go 7 and a knuckle.
Ooh, sexy.
I love Calder. I think Calder is my favorite character in this book.
Ew.
Oh,
It's Calder, Gorse,
You love the
Finry.
incel and the dick. Love that. Good for you, George.
Calder, Gorse, and
I still
Finry
remember
are my
Corley
favorite
the
characters.
weakest.
No, I just think that, I hate them so much. Every single one of these characters, but they're just so much fun to read.
I know they
And
are.
I love, even though that Calder is getting one over. He's getting one over on somebody who's just trying to protect their own. In the way that in the way that the civilization is. Paul Ricci is just trying to protect Seth. Because that's
Is he,
the only
though?
way that he can feel. Yeah, because he knows that Dao is going to win. And if Shivers hadn't have randomly stepped in and everybody had just been accepting of it, which had never happened before,
I'm just saying
then
maybe
it
it's
would
not
have
all.
gone that way.
I mean, I know what you're saying. I'm just saying maybe it's not all for Seth, but I hear what you're saying.
No, I reckon it is almost all for Seth. If she hadn't stood hostage for Calder, I don't reckon he would have tried to have him killed. And therefore, the whole conflict wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure.
But it's just, I love how kind of open-ended it is.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, there's just something about this chapter that wraps it all up perfectly for Calder. We just get some more later as well. 7 and a knuckle.
Harrison? No, you said 7. Yeah, you said 7 and knuckle. Sorry. Harrison?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I like how it's revealed, and I like how Calder's reaction is immediately like, "Oh, I gotta kill him." Just not yet. It's not yet. And I like how Shivers is like his homie right now. It's awesome. He's like, "You want to get him? You want to kill him?"
I do love that. I love that Calder is taking Shiver seriously,
Yeah.
but unlike anyone else.
I don't think that I think Calder is literally at his peak right now for the rest of his life. And I like that he's on the ball, he's enjoying it, he's getting to live, having this moment with Seth, and thinking that he really has won. And I think that this is one of those moments on a reread through that in a normal book, and in most books it feels like a normal scene, but in this scene when you reread it, knowing what comes, it's like tragic, and it's perfect for that reason. So I think I'm gonna give it an 8 for that.
Sequential, love that. Hell yeah. That's a great one. All right. Well, we'll move on to our final segment, which is our character spot. Now, boys, who are we truly shining the bat signal on?
The second best call in the series, Cole Ricci.
I think it's the only other call in the series.
Well, he's still second best then, isn't he?
Oh, nice.
Damn, hit me. Damn. Zam. Wasn't playing.
Well, I said a lot of it in my chapter review, but yeah, I think he really is just trying to. He's one of these people that has kind of failed to the top. Isn't really that good at his job. He doesn't really do anything significant. He's okay as a war leader. Don't really see anybody shouting his virtues or his prowess or anything like that. But he's just good enough to fail to the top.
I think you're stuck on the anti-capitalist message you got going on in your head or something because I don't.
I wasn't thinking about capitalism or anything like that.
I'm being silly.
I'm talking about a meritocracy, Jeffrey.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen.
Which
the
is what
North-
this is.
Yeah, well, this is what the North is. The North truly is a meritocracy. It's about.
That's what I mean. But
Yeah,
he's just good enough at everything.
He has a reputation as being a straight edge, a reputation. Remember, he outsources his buffoon.
Yeah, but as we know from Crawl, being a straight edge isn't really all that. It just means that you kind of keep to your principles sometimes.
No, according to Crawl, you're being a straight edge means you're just broke as fuck. You don't get no money. But
I think
Ricci's smart enough to actually accumulate wealth. If he can hire hitmen from, I don't know, let's just say
That's not
from,
straight edge behavior.
well,
I was
he
about to
said
say
it's
my
playing.
whole thought
Right.
is
I don't think he's failing his way to the top. I think he's playing the game. Intelligent.
I agree. I agree he's playing the game. However, I do think that does mean he's not a straight edge.
Right. No, of course. Yes. I
And
agree.
so I
And
like
he-
that
he
there's
admits-
I like his whole character is like, oh yeah, what a good guy. Even he's always six, and then he's just
right.
he's
Meanwhile,
also
he's out in the background
Yes.
like that.
it also is a really good foreshadowing to show that there are like this is where Joe like I feel like before this like we get the vibe that there is bias, right? And he did a good job at showing how Soul distributes power and all that. But I really like this idea that there's all this hidden forces going on, and this reinforces that a lot in the heroes with Ishri showing up and Bias being there, and then there are these sub layers, where everybody has their own power, their soft power that they're trying to convince people to do things and all that. Like Stranger Come Knocking is one of those people as well, and I think he is like the epitome of that kind of person who think it's a straight edge. Really, he's just good at playing the game. He stays in the DL and he connives and stuff. And it's funny that he gets onto Calder for doing that, even though he's doing the same thing. But in his mind, he's doing it the right way and for the right reasons. In his mind,
Right. Like, so here's the thing with Ricci, right? Like from the description before, like you could say the thing about like him being a war chief, whatever, no good traits. People say that Ricci's a good, solid man to follow. I mean, look at Ironhead, Ten Ways, Golden, all have really negative traits. Except actually maybe Ironhead. Ironhead's one that you can't move him from a spot that he's entrenched in. Iron and all that jazz. Well, other than that, people who say like they'll have no problem following Ricci, right? And then when you talk about his manipulations here, he's doing it for one it's self-serving, right? Positioning himself into the best position possible, no, regardless of the outcome. Second, try to make sure that his daughter comes through it unscathed, right? So this to me doesn't sound. This isn't a person that just fails upward. He's making chess moves. Now they might not be 4D chess moves, sure.
The thing is that you can always say things that look masterful after you've succeeded.
But
you
here's
didn't
the thing,
necessarily.
Sure, but he did them though. He absolutely pitted Calder against Dow and sent agents to get rid of Calder anyway, because he thinks that like if we're talking about like positions of power.
Where I'm getting this from is the way that he acts in the chapter where he's like, yeah, I did that.
Well, you know what?
You
know what?
know.
I do see your point. I do see your point where he goes, "You should listen to me," and it's like, it kind of turns out that way because you had a hand in it, you little bitch.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just saying. I'm saying to me, this is not a guy that necessarily fails upward. He's
I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that wholeheartedly. And to be honest, I was trying to kind of say that to get a reaction out of you, but
Why? Because I just need to. What? I just hate this. I hate this desire to prove things. Fuck me, man. I'm the worst.
Man, after 2 years, you think you'd learn, don't you, Jeff?
No, never. But you were saying something else, George. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think Cole Ritchie really is. He is competent, and he's just trying to really do what is best for his family, what he sees is right in the time. And you can't really blame him for that. And the fact that him and Calder, who we also like, come to odds, and Calder is going to eventually have him killed, is just. You really feel like it's just a way of the world. You don't really feel happy or sad about it. You just, that's just is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do like, I want to see more like thinkers in the North. You know what I mean? Like Bethod, Calder, Ricci to a point, Dow to a point. And I mean, you could say Logan when he wasn't in a horny berserker fueled rage or whatever. But, like we want more of them because a lot of the Northmen that we've seen, maybe like the 3 war chiefs I mentioned before, Splitfoot, Bad Enough. These people that might be like positions of power and things like that, but they don't they can't really navigate politics. It's very much very brute force, right?
Yeah.
And I want to see more thinkers. So
And I think that's that's a pivotal kind of point in a civilization's history where it goes from being just strong men ruling strong men to being a bureaucracy, which is the difference between the Union and the North.
mhm.
And that's sort of like it is a weird thing in Joe's stuff because you never really have anything like this in real life where you have like a Renaissance era civilization going against like a sort of Dark Ages civilization.
Oh yes, you do. Yes, you do. When the Europeans found the New World.
Yeah.
I'd argue they weren't Dark Ages yet.
And Japan. America was
They were
Japan.
They were fucking.
Whoa, Japan, whoa. Japan was
Ameri-
medieval. Japan was medieval.
Japan was,
And
Japan was medieval.
yeah, yeah. All of the Americas were
feudal.
pre-feudal.
Yeah,
Almost.
but the Americans were pre-feudal, which is basically what you're saying. Because the Dark Ages is
No, Dark Ages is later.
Dark Ages is first of all, the Dark Ages is a misnomer. Even historians will say that the Dark Ages isn't a real thing. That
Okay,
there
sorry. What I'm specifically referring to is
the Stone Age. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm specifically referring to is the Iron Age in say 300 CE to about 900 CE.
Okay. Okay, I get that.
Which is what the Northland is based on, Anglo-Saxons,
Yeah.
the Northmen,
Right,
Norsemen,
right.
Vikings, that kind of thing. That's
Right.
the kind of civilization that we're talking about.
Right, I'm tracking. I think I got stuck when you said Dark Ages, and I was like, well,
Yeah, no. I was speaking in a completely Eurocentral mode of perspective, and I didn't appreciate your perspective there. I'm sorry, Jeffrey.
That's a sarcastic fucking jibe if I ever heard one. I swear to God.
I know that I have hang-ups, and I'm working on it.
The Eurocentric viewpoints, huh? How's that working for you over there in the British Isles?
Man, my calendar is set. My calendar is set off 1066. I don't know what you're talking about.
Set off 1066.
So dumb.
Harold Godwinson is the rightful. No, sorry.
You got damn right. Fuck those Normans. Fucking
It all went
French.
to shit when the Normans and that William came on.
I know. That's why I hate the royal family.
But they built castles.
Oh my God.
Everyone was building castles. Fuck you.
Well, that's our last segment with our character spot on Mr. Carl Ricci. That's our show, everyone. We want to thank you all for listening and supporting this podcast. As you know, this is a passion project for the three of us, and your support means oh so much.
Join us next week as we cover new hands, old hands, and everyone serves.
And make sure you follow us, like us on all of our social media, and shoot us an email at circleofthewildpodcast@gmail.com.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. And please make sure to rate and review us. Thank you all again for listening.
Cardotti's. Never heard of it.